All right, so today we're going to go through the blood flow of the kidney. And so if you look right here, you have your renal artery coming in. As that renal artery comes in, it splits into three segments. They're going to go superior, lateral, and inferior. And then that segmental artery splits to go to these interlobar arteries. So each one of these interlobar arteries is going to be associated with these medulla pyramids here. And so they make kind of like these little lobes, interlobar, right? Then you get these ones that form an arc. So these are your arcuate arteries, ones forming an arc. And off of those arcuate arteries, you have interlobular. It's really similar to interlobar. Don't get these two confused. So this one is interlobular, and this one is interlobar. So the lobular is going to be a much smaller artery, okay? So while this one comes up here and there, these interlobulars are going to be these little bitty ones that go out into the cortex. Now, the next one is your afferent arteriole, and you don't see it on this kidney. You have to go in really small. You have to go to the nephron to see this afferent arteriole. And so here is your interlobular, right here, this really short one, right? Here's your arcuate, interlobular, and then off of that interlobular, your afferent comes off. And that afferent then comes here into the glomerular capsule. So this is the only place in the body that I know of that you have an afferent and efferent arteriole after a capillary bed. Normally when you have a capillary bed, it's going to be artery and then vein, but not here in the nephron. And so these capillaries are actually under a lot more pressure than your normal run-of-the-mill capillaries. So here's your glomerular capillaries, and then you get your efferent arterioles coming out of that glomerulus. And then your efferent arteriole then comes down and becomes your capillary bed. And depending on what type of nephron you have, if it's cortical or if it's juxtamedullary, you'll have different types of capillary beds. So you can have paratubular, these ones that are hanging out next to the tubes, or you can have the vasa recta that you see associated with a larger loop of Henle. All right, and then we come out. So after that capillary bed, you go to your interlobular vein, and then you just follow it down to your arcuate. From the arcuate to your interlobar. So these ones right here, right? So arcuate makes the arc. Interlobar are the ones going around the medulla pyramids. And then you get your segmental veins, anterior, lateral, inferior, leading to the renal vein. And that is the blood flow through the kidney. So real quick, renal artery, segmental, interlobar, arcuate, interlobular, afferent arteriole, glomerular capillary, efferent arteriole, paratubular capillary, interlobular vein, arcuate vein, interlobar vein, segmental vein, and then finally renal vein. And this blood flow is really important because this is where all that filtration is taking place. So if we look at it, the actual filtering unit of the kidney is going to be this thing called the nephron. So here's our nephron right here. We've already covered these arteries and veins, so we're not going to really talk about those too much. You have your arcuate, interlobar, afferent, glomerular, efferent, another capillary, back to interlobular, wow, and then arcuate. So in the glomerulus, looking at this capillary bed, this is where you're going to have a superfiltrate. So lots and lots of stuff is getting pulled out of the blood. And we'll go in a little bit deeper to look at some special cells that you have here lining these capillaries that allow them to filter out a lot of extra stuff. So, talking about the filtrate, so when we pull it out here at Bowman's capsule, or at the glomerulus, it empties into the lumen here, into this capsule. That capsule and the lumen then go to this first tubule called the proximal convoluted tubule, or the proximal tubule. You'll hear me call it the proximal convoluted, or convoluted. If you look at it, it's very twisty and windy. It looks very convoluted, and it's proximal to the glomerulus. That proximal convoluted tubule then comes down, and you get the descending loop of Henle, and then the ascending loop of Henle. And now we're further away from that glomerulus, so now we're at our distal convoluted tubule. Your distal convoluted tubule then drains into your collecting duct. Those collecting ducts are going to be these things right here. So what gives this medullary pyramid that kind of pyramid stripy look to it is because of those ducts, and they are draining out these papillae into these minor calyx, which goes to the major calyx, which then goes to the renal sinus. So here again, we have two different nephron types. So if you look, this is a cortical nephron with paratubular capillaries. This is your juxtamedullary nephron. And this one has the vasa recta on the loop of Henle. So, cortical nephron, where do you expect to find that? Probably in the cortex of the kidney. Juxtamedullary, where do you expect to find that one? Well, what does juxta mean? If something is juxtaposed, it means it's going to be next to it, right? And so, juxtamedullary is this nephron that is next to the medulla. And so if you look at the kidney, you'll have your cortical one up here, your juxtamedullary one down here, and actually that loop of Henle goes down into the medulla. When it does that, there's a lot of salts and stuff down here in the medulla. There's a lot of solute, and so this allows you to pull out a lot more water from your urine. And so it helps to concentrate urine. You see people who are dehydrated or animals that live in the desert have a lot more juxtamedullary nephrons, so they can pull out a lot more water. So when water gets scarce, you can have these juxtamedullary nephrons and help you to keep more water in, and so you don't get dehydrated. So the renal corpuscle, this is talking about that glomerulus. If you look at a slide of your renal corpuscle, or if you look at a slide of the kidney, there's going to be a ton of simple cuboidal all over the place, and then occasionally you'll see a little circle with a lot of capillaries in it, and that's going to be the renal corpuscle. If you look at it, this is where we're going to pick up next time with your afferent arteriole coming in, your efferent coming out, and how this renal corpuscle works to cause a superfiltrate.